Hi everyone, it's Chris and welcome back to another video. Thank you for popping by today. Today we're going to talk about power pop, a genre of music that's defined by catchy tunes and choruses, harmonies, jangly guitars, songs of teenage love, lots of la la la's and come ons. And so I'm going to share my favourite power pop songs today, and I'm going to do that in the form of a timeline. And it's going to start in the early 60s with the influences on power pop, so how power pop actually became power pop in the first place. And of course that starts with the early Beatles, an era of the Beatles which is very much my favourite era of the Beatles. I love their kind of 63, 64 kind of pop songs like Please Please Me, you know, a classic 3 to 4 minute pop song, just fantastic stuff. And She Loves You, you know, teenage based lyrics, infectious energy, possibly a little bit earwormy, all features of what would in the 1970s become power pop. Now, George Harrison may well have invented power pop on this particular album, Rubber Soul from 1965. There's a song on here which is the second last song, If I Needed Someone. It's a song that he wrote, I think, for his then girlfriend, Pattie Boyd. It's got jangly guitars, it's incredibly birdsy. And I think George Martin, who produced the album, obviously, he offered it to the Hollies as well. And they did a version of it, which was released on the same day as Rubber Soul, I believe, as a 45 here in the UK. And it was George Harrison's first chart success as a songwriter, I think. So they went on then, obviously, the following year to produce the groundbreaking album Revolver. And there's a song on here, second track on side 2, And Your Bird Can Sing. And lots of people regard that as the birth of power pop. It's, you know, all Rickenbacker jangle and harmonies. A song I think the Jam covered as well. So obviously they sparked the British invasion, and that was a massive influence on power pop. So songs like Glad All Over by the Dave Clark Five, Needles and Pins by the Searchers, or When You Walk in the Room by the Searchers, but also early Kinks as well. I know this song, You Really Got Me, was a big influence on metal, but it's also a very big influence on power pop as well. Songs like All Day and All of the Night, which, if you listen to that, is very much like I Can't Explain by The Who. So it's all pop with power. Now, Pete Townsend was the person who actually coined the term power pop. In fact, he did that to describe the 1967 song Pictures of Lily. So catchy, short catchy tunes, uplifting stuff, as I said, lots of la la la's and come ons. And if you listen to Open My Eyes by Todd Rundgren's The Nazz, that steals I Can't Explain. So lots of these bands are influences on what was going to happen later on in the kind of late 60s into the early 70s. So it wasn't just a British thing. Obviously, North America also got into this via the Byrds. I Feel a Whole Lot Better, which is, you know, borrows heavily from Needles and Pins and was definitely a big influence on And Your Bird Can Sing. But there's lots of 12-string kind of jangle on that particular song. Songs like you know, the Beach Boys, Wouldn't It Be Nice? That's backed with God Only Knows. What a 45 that is. But we've got harmonies. It's so poppy. You know, brilliant lyrics like I Wish That Every Kiss was Never Ending. Fantastic stuff. So elaborate harmonies would be one of the major features of the power pop kind of genre as an essential element. Think songs like Tommy James and is it the Shandels? I Think We're Alone Now. And then into kind of 68, round about 68, 69, 70, we've got the kind of bubblegum era. And a real classic of that particular era, this is from 1969, is the Archies and Sugar Sugar, which is just a classic pop song. It was an incredibly big seller as well. And Alex Chilton, who later was the lead singer in power pop Big Guns Big Star, he actually covered that particular song. So a big influence on power pop. It was the bubblegum era. Songs like Last Train to Clarksville by the Monkees. Actually, that's I'm a Believer. I got out the wrong one. But Last Train to Clarksville, that song is very much influenced by Paperback Writer. A little bit more no, no, no's than yeah, yeah, yeahs, but it's certainly influenced by that. So bubblegum was proper pop, but power pop goes a little bit more for the heart. But bubblegum was a huge influence on power pop. If you listen to Just What I Needed by the Cars, you know, did that have its roots in bubblegum? So if you listen to the start of Just What I Needed and then play Ohio Express and Yummy Yummy Yummy, there's a lot of similarities. So when the Beatles split, what, in 1970, they were a long way when they did split from being that kind of early 60s pop band that I love them for. But that mantle of being that pop band was taken on by a band called Badfinger. So they were on Apple Records, and their first single, I think this is their first single, was a Paul McCartney song called Come and Get It, which is absolutely brilliant. They then went on to write a song called No Matter What, which is so Beatley. I'm sure if you first heard that on the radio, you probably would have thought it was the Beatles. So we've got that jangle, we've got that harmony, we've got that kind of lyrical content, the 3-minute song, all the factors are in place. It's kind of Beatles, but a little bit louder. So Baby Blue by Badfinger as well. I mean, that could have been written by George Harrison. Fantastic stuff. So power pop, the birth probably came from the Beatles, certainly a massive influence, them and the British Invasion and the Who, but then taken on by, originally I think, by bands like Badfinger. So over in the States we had the Raspberries from, I think, Cleveland in Ohio. Their lead singer was Eric Carmen, who went on to sing that All By Myself kind of classic ballad. But this is Overnight Sensation. And Eric Carmen wanted to rock like the Who, sing like the Beatles, have harmonies like the Beach Boys, and do that all within sort of 3-4 minutes. They did a song called Go All The Way, which is lots of come-ons. It's a good song. But I think this is my favourite song by them, Overnight Sensation. Yes, it probably stretches the genre a little bit. It's got a kind of a radio sound in it. It's got a Keith Moon big drum bit. It's got, a snippet of a previous song. But it's a great song. It's Overnight Sensation by the Raspberries. The next band I need to think about in this timeline, I actually don't own anything by, and that's Big Star, and that's led by Alex Chilton, who was originally in the Box Tops. They did that fantastic song called The Letter. Their first album was called Number One Record, which was probably a little bit hopeful, but there's a song on there called 13, which is brilliant. It's a pop song all about pop songs. I think it references Paint It Black. The second album, which again I don't have, but I've streamed it, I actually think I may prefer the second album. It's called Radio City, came out in 74. I think there's a song called September Girls on it, which I think the Bangles covered. It's very Beach Boy-esque. And there's the last song on the album, I think it's the last song on the album, which is just under 2 minutes long. It's called I'm in Love with a Girl, which is just brilliant. Absolutely superb song. So glam rock came out in the kind of early 70s. Bands like The Sweet, songs like Blockbuster, which was produced by Mike Chapman, who had a lot to do with power pop later on, as we'll discover. But songs like the Bay City Rollers and Saturday Night, which is, for me, an absolute power pop classic. This is a song apparently that influenced Blitzkrieg Bop by Ramones, with the SATURDAY and A-O, let's go. Very influenced, according to Johnny Ramone, by the Bay City Rollers. Now, Todd Rundgren had produced Straight Up by Badfinger, but he also did his own album in the early 70s called Something Anything. Todd Rundgren played a lot of the instruments as a multi-instrumentalist, lots of different styles, but there's a song on here called Couldn't I Just Tell You, which is very kind of, cheap. It's very jangly. Cheap Trick must have heard that song and been influenced by it. So in the kind of mid 70s, there was a kind of resurgence in power pop, and one particular band called the Flaming Groovies came to the fore. They were very Beatley. They even found a home, interestingly enough, with the punk scene here in the UK, and they feature on this Vertigo Sire sampler with an absolutely classic song, which is Shake Some Action. That's an absolute power pop classic, I think. Brilliant stuff. And then we've got Tom Petty. Now, lots of people might think, oh, Tom Petty, that's not power pop. I think it is. It's Americana power pop. Features backing vocals from Phil Seymour, who was in the Dwight Twilley band, which were very power pop. But it's so jangly. It's so birdsy. It's absolutely brilliant, that song. I adore it. And then we've got bands like The Shoes. This is Tomorrow Night by them, which I think is their biggest seller, which is a great song. And there was another band around at that time, about 76, called The Nerves. They only did one 4-track EP, and one of the songs on that was called Hanging on the Telephone. More about that in a moment. And then we've got Stiff Records. Now, Stiff Records were an independent label here in the UK who produced some real power pop classics. Yes, they did release the first UK punk song, New Rose by the Damned, but they also produced things like Red Shoes, by Elvis Costello, which is very jangly. It's about romantic disappointment, which is excellent power pop material. Fantastic kind of power pop song, as is the first song that came out on Stiff Records, which was Nick Lowe's So It Goes. Now, this was a song that allegedly cost £45 to make. Lots of chiming guitars and all that kind of stuff. But for me, his greatest power pop moment was Cruel to Be Kind, which I think is an absolutely classic power pop song. Fantastic. Now, James Honeyman Scott of the Pretenders, how good a guitarist was he? Really underappreciated, I think. He obviously was very influenced by this sound because he went on to provide the Pretenders with some wonderful jangly guitar. You know, even if you take one song off of here, Kid, from the 1979 debut, it's a Rickenbacker fest. It really is fantastic. And then we've got a band, I think this band are from possibly Vancouver, they're certainly Canadian, it's on Stiff Records, Pointed Sticks. And this is Out of Luck, which is, I think, a power pop classic. It's a great song. And we're starting to see power pop and punk start to meet. And sometimes some of those songs, I think they're absolutely fantastic. So, for example, Sheena is a punk rocker. So the Ramones were very influenced by the Beach Boys, by 60s girls groups, by Bay City Rollers. And that gave them a kind of bubblegum edge. But that's a fantastic pop tune. Brilliant stuff. And here in the UK, the Buzzcocks, I think, were producing some wonderful kind of power poppy kind of stuff. You know, What Do I Get? And Ever Fall in Love, which was a big hit here in the UK. And also bands like, and I know this is a new wave classic, but The Only Ones, a song of which is about infatuation with a kind of space cadet girl from Yugoslavia, allegedly. You've got a wonderful guitar solo in it, but that's a brilliant kind of power poppy single. And we've got things like Here Comes the Summer by the Undertones, which is just a brilliant pop song, or Back of the Hand by the Jags, very Costello influenced song, or The Boys, who were like often described as the Beatles in bondage, Brickfield Nights, really good kind of upbeat poppy kind of song, Dave Edmunds, Girls Talk. Wow, that's an Elvis Costello song. It's a fantastic power pop song. The Motors, who were kind of a pub rocky, bit new wavy, but Forget About You. What a wonderful song that is. Now, one of the members of the Motors was Bram Tchaikovsky. He produced, I don't know how many solo albums, but this was his first one. And Girl of My Dreams is very Tom Petty-esque, but also really good power pop song. The Tours, Language School, kind of an unknown power pop gem. If you haven't heard that, absolutely fantastic. There's not much information on it. It's not a promo, but there isn't much information on it. But that's the Tours. And then we get to a band called The Records. Now, I don't own this particular single. I've got this one, Tina Rama. But Starry Eyes by them is fantastic. And they must have listened, I think, to the Rods' Do Anything You Want to Do. Because if you listen to the start, it's very, very similar. Now, Starry Eyes never charted here in the UK. I think it possibly did well in the US, but it's almost one of the genre's definitive statements, Starry Eyes. But I think that mantle could well go to bands like Cheap Trick. So lots of come-ons. I think they even had a song called Come On, didn't they? Lots of catchy choruses, incredibly Beatles influence. This is Surrender, which is from 78, I think. Brilliant, brilliant song. Draws on The Kids All Right, I think, from The Who. Mummy's All Right, Daddy's All Right. It's a fantastic little pop song. But then, you know, just when you're thinking, oh, that's a power pop classic, they came up with this song, I Want You to Want Me, the live version, formed at the Budokan, the Japanese venue in Tokyo, and is just an absolute power pop classic. It probably is my favourite one, I think. We may have others. And then we've got New Wave coming in. So I think New Wave really revitalised power pop. Bands like Blondie. So this is Denis from 77, I think. And they did a cover of Randy and the Rainbows' Denise. And it's kind of just a really brilliant, catchy, unpretentious love song. Fantastic stuff. Now, I mentioned Mike Chapman and The Sweet earlier on. He produced, of course, Parallel Lines. And Hanging on the Telephone, the covers that the Nerves did back in 76, is an absolutely classic power pop song, as is, I think, Dreaming as well. Features some absolutely wonderful Clem Burke drumming, just fantastic. This is a song of teenage longing, a 3-minute power pop fest. It really is. Brilliant stuff. And then we've got American band often seen as a new wave band, but I think they were a really interesting band, the Cars. You know, lots of catchy tunes, lots of power chords. Best Friend's Girl, good power pop song. But also, I think my favourite one is Just What I Needed, which potentially is my favourite power pop song alongside I Want You to Want Me. Again, listen to the start of Yummy 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 by the Ohio Express, and then listen to that. And then we've got, I think this is also in 79, this one, which is the Rubinoos. I Want to Be Your Boyfriend. So, you know, this is, you know, a teenage song with a really catchy chorus. I think Avril Lavigne covered it in the 2000s, a song called Boyfriend, which was very similar. I think it possibly sparked some kind of lawsuit because it was plagiarism in the extreme, but it's a great song. And the lead-off song on this one is also really good. So this, I think, is their debut album. The song is written in 76. This is a 77 album, but it's their version of the Tommy James Shondells song, I Think We're Alone Now, which is just a brilliant power pop song. Fantastic. And then we come to another absolute classic of 70s power pop, The Knack. My Sharona, one of the most successful songs of 1979. Again, this is produced by Mike Chapman, incredibly influenced, I think, by Pump It Up by Elvis Costello, but it's an absolutely masterpiece of a power pop song. It has a brilliant guitar solo on it as well, absolutely fantastic. It's like New Wave's version of You Really Got Me and My Generation, and it's written from the perspective of a 14-year-old boy, which obviously sparks some pretty dodgy lyrics, but it is a great song. Their career was fairly short-lived, I think. Their success was anyway, because the single from the next album, I'm trying to think what that's called, I think it's called Boy Talks Dirty or something like that. It's like My Sharona revisited, and it's really grim, actually. It's not very good at all. But My Sharona, wow, what a brilliant song. And then we're into the 80s now, and so we've got songs like Vacation by Go-Go's, which was the title track of that particular album, or Jessie's Girl by Rick Springfield, which I think is a great power pop song, or British band Barracudas and their very kind of surf punky power pop song Summer Fun, with its free transfers on the back. And also, this is a really rare single, actually, a really rare little 45 by The Fans. I think they're from Bristol. This is called You Don't Live Here Anymore. It's on Fried Egg Records. Great little song. So that's from about 1980. And so it seemed a little bit over in the early 80s. That was until the 90s, when bands like the Lars, Weezer, Teenage Fan Club, the Posies, and of course, not forgetting, I can't remember the name of the band, the band that did the theme tune for Friends. I can't remember what their name is now. But like most music, I think the best stuff was coming from the 70s. So power pop, jangly Rickenbackers, harmonies, love songs, power chords, catchy choruses, lots of la la las and come ons. What are your favourites? Tell me what they are in the comments below, and I'm sure I'll be back sometime soon with another video. Cheers.